Hello, Jackal fans. Welcome into the Jackals Coaches Show. I'm Jared Abbott alongside Jackals head coach Jamie Russell. Jamie, feels like it's been a while since we've done one of these. Thanks for coming on and joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Well, there's been a lot of hockey over the last couple of weeks and a lot of hockey away from First Arena. Your team just finished a stretch where they played, combined with the holiday break before and after, 11 of 12 games away from home ice after playing predominantly most of the first 2 months on home ice where you had a lot of success. And your team went on the road, and they say if you play 500 hockey or better on the road and then win at home, you're in a good position for the playoffs. Your team goes 2-1-1, taking 5 of 8 possible points on this past road trip. Let's go all the way back to 2014 on New Year's Eve. Team went down to Reading to take on the Royals. It was the final of really a mini 3-game set. You played them twice right after Christmas, lost those 2 contests, but then went into Santanderita and had a big third period. What did you like out of your team? You won 4-0, but it was 0-0 going into the final frame.
We had a lot of guys that stepped up. We had a number of players that got called up to the American League. We had a number of players that were banged up with injuries. We had guys that played that were not 100%. And it was a tight game going into the third period, and I thought obviously our third period was terrific. We exploded offensively and got a big win on the road. Reading's got a terrific lineup right now. They're hard to play against. Anytime you can get points on the road against a divisional opponent, that's a real bonus and a positive. So very pleased with the guys' effort in getting that win and getting things done on the road.
Sam Murata in particular getting his first professional shutout. He looked very strong and calm, collected throughout the game. What did you like out of the 23-year-old's performance?
Well, I was really happy for him. He's been close a number of times in terms of getting that shutout and getting that first one. And, you know, he's played some really good games for us where on the other end, flip it around, that we've been shut out. And for a goaltender, when you're playing really well and you know your team's not scoring goals in front of you, that's a real tall order to be successful, obviously. So I was happy that Sam was rewarded with getting the shutout, and then the team played well in front of him. I didn't think we gave up a ton of grade A opportunities, but his rebound control was good. When he was called upon, he did make some good saves for us.
When your team did get the scoring going, it was your captain, Matt Tassoni, getting you on the board. Throughout the road trip, he did that a couple of times. He now has 7 first goals of the game. I don't know if that stat holds any bearing, but he leads the league in that category. Is there something about his game that when he needs to be called upon or someone needs to step up, you have a room full of leaders, guys that wore letters on their chest, but he is your captain, and is that something that he just really takes it to the next level with those 7 first goals?
I think that's exactly it. You hit it right on the head, that when we need a spark, when we need somebody to step up, he takes a huge responsibility and really carries the burden of leadership extremely well. And he knew that we needed a goal, and he's done that time and time and time again for us, where he stepped up and really got us going. We're still a pretty young team. We've got a lot of first-year pros on our roster. We've talked about it at length, but we're a different team when we score first. And on the one side, we gain a lot of confidence from that, and Matt recognizes that. He stepped up and got us that first goal on a number of occasions. We have to mature a little bit as a hockey team when we don't score first, because it's not going to happen every night. That we have to keep plugging away, stay strong mentally, and keep grinding to get the end result.
Well, I think we were really short on guys. I think we did the best we could do. We got 5 out of the 8 points. Overall, it was a success. We learned a bit in the one game in Gwinnett, and I think overall it was a success for the guys. Everyone stepped up and filled in the roles real nicely. I think the main thing is everyone on the team gets along with one another. We all gel together really nicely. That's a very tight locker room. I mean, all the guys live together in the same house. I think that helps a lot too. And we have a solid coach here with Jamie Russell. So, you know, I think that's the main differences. And I think this team, you know, has a real good chance this year.
You had touched on earlier here when we were talking about Sam that he has stepped up in games where, you know, your team has found trouble scoring goals, and it's something that it's interesting when you look at it that the Jackals have been shut out 5 times this season But yet you look at the wins-loss record, it seems like when the team loses, it's very difficult to score goals when you look at only 13 losses in regulation, and 5 of those come by way of shutout. Is that something that's a mental factor with a lot of the young guys on the team, or is it just when the other team gets the first goal, then things start to change and it's more difficult for you guys to score?
I think in this situation there was a couple of factors involved. I think the first was Domingue came in and played really, really well. He's a terrific goalie. He came down from the American League. I thought the looks that we had on net were amazing. And it was, give your head a shake. Yeah. He saved that, type of thing. We didn't have a large volume of shots on goal, but boy, when we had scoring chances, he came up big and made some great saves. I thought through 2 periods we were right there. We stuck with it. It was 1-0 game going into the 3rd period. I didn't like our 3rd. I thought we got away from some of the things that make us successful. We started pressing a little bit too much where, we started gambling and it ended up costing us, and we gave up 2 power play goals. I don't think it was Sammy's best night in the 3rd period. He had a couple that he'd like to have back, but again, that gets back to a little bit of our team where we have to mature and we have to understand we're playing well, we're getting our chances. You don't have to change and you don't have to really throw everything at it in terms of sacrificing defense to generate opportunities. We were getting our chances, but obviously that came back and bit us with a poor 3rd period.
Then the next night, you end up shorthanded by the end of the game, so we'll touch on that with the injuries the team has seemed to mount throughout the last week, including guys that played but played through injury, and then guys that were unable to go even though they gave it a shot. But you still found a way to pull out and grind a 2-1 victory on the road against a divisional opponent. What did you think of the team's character that night?
Well, that's the word for it right there, is the character was absolutely incredible. That we were down to 8 forwards. We had guys in the lineup that were playing hurt. We had guys that tried to go that were injured that just couldn't. We lost another player in the 3rd period that had to go back to the dressing room. So we were down to 8 forwards. With a tough schedule, it was our 3rd game in 4 nights, and hanging on to a 2-1 lead. And our 3rd period, I thought I couldn't have been prouder for the guys. We did not give up a shot on goal for the first 12 minutes of the 3rd period with a 2-1 lead, down to 8 forwards. We took Jordan Ciccarello from the back end. We moved him. He took some shifts at forward. That left us with 5 on the back end. But the guys really stepped up, and Travis played really well in getting the win, and I couldn't have been happier that the guys were rewarded, because if that game had gone to overtime, I don't know if we would have had anything left in the gas tank to get through 5 minutes of overtime to grind it out. But we played really smart. We had good puck management. We kept a lot of things to the perimeter, and we didn't let a lot of shots. We had some huge blocks. Thomas Nesbitt dove in front of a slap shot at the end of the game, and that's how our guys have been all year. They step up, they play for each other, they sacrifice, and it was a big, big win for us on the road.
Well, it's very beautiful around the area of Elmira. I have a dog, so she enjoys the outdoors, and around here is a great place for that. So I think that's the main thing that I've been doing, and other than that, just hanging out with the guys and getting to know everyone on the team. I guess growing up in Peterborough, Ontario, I got my start. My father played hockey growing up, and he played for the Peterborough Petes. And I guess he just got me into it, and exposed me to it at a young age, and I just picked up on it. Grew up loving the Boston Bruins, so I just grew up playing hockey all the way, and kept going.
I wanted to keep going on that point of the shootout. Would you be a proponent of either increasing the overtime period, where you go from a 4-on-4 to a 3-on-3? I know that's been something that's been discussed at all different levels of hockey. Is that something that you yourself would like to see personally instead of the shootout?
I think they've done that in the American League, and it's extremely rare that they have a shootout now where you play, I believe it's 4 minutes of 4-on-4 and then 3 minutes of 3-on-3. When you get down to that, level where there's only 3 skaters per side out there, you're going to decide the game. It's pretty exciting for the fans. It goes back and forth. It's kind of scoring chance. You're trading chances. I think it's exciting. To me, it's more hockey. The shootout is a skills competition. It doesn't resemble hockey. It's, to me, I'm not a big fan of it at all. At our level in the ECHL, they don't even scrape the ice. So I know when Matt Tassoni went down the ice, it was like he was dribbling a basketball. The puck was, hopping and bouncing. It would not lay down flat for him. So it's not the best ideal way from my standpoint, in my opinion, to decide a hockey game.
I agree. I think people worry that if you get through the 4-on-4 and 3-on-3 and you're still tied, what do you do at that point? But 3-on-3, people say the shootout's exciting, but 3-on-3, you're down and back. It's a helter-skelter type of hockey, and at the end of the day, it's going to be 2-on-1 and 2-on-1, and if someone jumps in the play, it's probably going to end one way or the other. So I agree with you on that front. I think that would be a better way to settle it. Keith Buehler and Phil Bronner are 2 players that joined the team, along with Jordan Chickarelli. You mentioned him earlier in today's show. But just want to touch base on those 3 because I know we talked about them in one of our pregame shows before one of the games. But the fans here in Elmira, there's a lot of player movement back and forth, and some of them are wondering, who's this guy Phil Bronner? Who's this guy Keith Buehler, Jordan Chickarello? Because all 3 made contributions on the team's road trip. Bronner and Buehler both scored their first ECHL goals. Buehler made a really nice pass on last Wednesday's game on New Year's Eve, but just touch on the 3 of them for a little bit and just let the fans kind of understand who they are.
Well, it was a great opportunity for them. It was about a week and a half ago on Saturday. Rochester was pretty banged up. Buffalo was pretty banged up. We lost a defenseman to injury, and then Rochester called 3 players up. So that call came about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. We were heading on the road to play at Reading. I believe the bus was leaving at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we had roughly 3 hours to find some players that could come and join our team, join our roster. They had to be in Elmira either for 1 o'clock or meet us in Reading, Pennsylvania for a 7 o'clock game that night. So we hit the phones and, we scoured through a lot of our contacts, and we were able to get some players. And the Federal League, Danbury and Watertown, Phil Bronner is a player that was playing up in Watertown, was able to jump in his car and get down and join us for a pregame meal, get on the bus. And then we actually needed a backup goaltender, as Travis Fullerton was one of the guys. So we got a goaltender to join us, and Jordan Chickarella from Danbury in the Federal League. And then I was familiar with Keith Buehler. He's from Skinny Atlas. I know Chris Potter, who coached him in college, and had really good things to say about him. I contacted him. He was available. So these guys joined us, and again, you're not really sure what you're going to get. You probably in these situations, you haven't seen these guys played. You've done your research. You have a file of guys that you know. Had to be an American, where we weren't going to get a Canadian that was going to get some immigration that was going to be done in such short notice on a weekend. So your options are somewhat limited, but these guys came in and did great. Keith Buehler is a guy that he's not huge in stature, but he finishes hits. He's capable of making a play. As you mentioned, he made a great pass to Colin Jacobs for a goal in Reading. He's a guy that skates very well. Phil Bronner's a big guy, 6'2", 215 pounds, and when he hits guys, he pounds them, and he's done it consistently, and it's earned him ice time, it's earned him opportunities. He's got a good stick. He's chipped in a couple goals in the short time he's been with us. And then Jordan Chickarella is a guy that on defense, I think the biggest compliment you can pay him is we haven't noticed him a whole lot, and that's people hear that and they kind of go, what are you talking about? You haven't noticed him. Well, a lot of times for a defenseman, when you notice him, he's out of position or he has a bad turnover and it's a glaring mistake and it ends up costing you. And he hasn't had those moments, which says a lot that he's able to gone into the lineup and played in some tough situations and some close games, and he's performed very well with a regular shift.
I definitely think it's important. Obviously, that's kind of one of my roles out there. The game has changed so much, though. One thing I need to adapt is I need to learn how to play the game. Guys nowadays, there's no room for guys that can just fight, and be a one-dimensional player. So just trying to adapt to that and being able to play a regular shift and log some minutes out there without being a liability. So I think that's important. But yeah, it can change the game. So it can change the game positively, and I think so. My favorite food? I think I usually eat chicken parm, veal parm, anything like that. It's pretty tasty before a game. I usually like to eat that. On a non-game night, I guess I'd go with a steak, a nice steak any day.
You also sent Rob Florentino to Florida and Spencer McAvoy to Orlando. That was to complete trades from back in October and November. The Florida trade brought Kevin Hart to Elmira. The Orlando trade bringing Mike Bergen to Elmira. So that's why nothing came back in return during those trades. For the fans that were wondering, what they got in return, it was players that they've already seen and have contributed to the team throughout the season. But those two players leaving the team obviously changes the depth chart when you look at defensemen. Obviously, Florentino played both sides. McAvoy, defenseman, both good character guys, good guys in the locker room, but just the nature of the business, that's how you have to do a future consideration trade.
Yeah, we were able to obtain Kevin Hart and Bergen trades earlier that really helped our back end, and those guys are playing in our top four right now. I was really happy with Rob Florentino and Spencer McAvoy in terms of the character that those guys brought to the rink every day. It was probably the toughest part of my job is when you sit down with a young man and you have to tell him that either you've traded his rights or you're releasing him. And the best part of my job is when you sit down with a guy and you tell him that he's been promoted to the American League. But they're two good guys that really fit into our group very, very well. It's a little bit, at some point, that payment becomes due. With the injuries that we've incurred here, with Seidel being out, Steffician out, Bludoff is questionable here. We're not 100% sure where those guys are at, how long they're going to be out. Are they going to be on 21-day R? Are they just going to be out a week, 10 days? It's pretty unclear. We're hoping to get some answers with that later today, early tomorrow. We should get Andrew Conboy back from long-term injury. He should be able to go this weekend against Brampton on Friday night. So we're going to have to add a piece up front because of all the injuries. In order to do that, we had to free up some roster space, and we had to kind of kill two birds with one stone. We had to satisfy the future considerations that we gave up, and then clear that roster space as well.
Switching gears to the junior ranks, World Junior Championship, one of the most notorious tournaments this time of year. Certainly your home nation, and the host nation for the tournament. Team Canada walked away with the gold medal, defeating Russia 5-4, had a 5-1 lead, almost gave it up. I will say Team Canada also defeated Team USA in the group stage. That one was a 5-3 score. So what does it mean to, as someone who is Canadian, put that in perspective for people who want to say, like, how much Canadians have pride in their hockey, especially when they're hosting. What is that like?
There's a tremendous amount of pride in Canada with the game of hockey, and with that comes a lot of pressure. You have to remember, some of these kids are 17, 18, 19 years old, and they're playing in buildings that 18, 19,000 people. You go to Canada during World Juniors, you open the sports section of the newspaper, and it is 5, 6, 7 pages of coverage for the World Juniors. It's all over the TVs. It leads the news stories. People take a lot of pride in it, and there's a lot of pressure on those young men. And fortunately, Canada was able to be successful, win the gold medal on home soil. And it's interesting, the dynamic within our team, because we don't have any Europeans, and it's all Americans and Canadians. So there was some good-natured ribbing. I know I had my Team Canada shirt on after they beat the Americans. So it was terrific hockey to watch. It was extremely entertaining. I thought the pace, the skill, the intensity of the games was off the charts.
That'll do it for the Jackals Coaches Show. Jared Abbott, Jamie Russell, thank you all for tuning in on WTM. Have a good night.